Serbia is facing one of its most turbulent moments in recent years as mass protests that began peacefully have turned violent, prompting a harsh warning from the country's populist president Aleksandar Vučić. The unrest, which spread across several cities including Belgrade, Novi Sad and Valjevo, was originally driven by anger over corruption and government negligence. The immediate spark can be traced back to the tragic collapse of a train station canopy in Novi Sad in late 2024, which killed 16 people and became a symbol of state failure. Students and young activists initially organized vigils and demonstrations demanding accountability, but as the government offered few answers and police used heavy-handed tactics, frustration grew. By mid-2025, hundreds of thousands of people had joined nationwide demonstrations, and the mood shifted from grief to defiance. In recent days the protests escalated into violent clashes. Riot police fired tear gas while demonstrators hurled bottles, flares and stones. Offices of Vučić's ruling Serbian Progressive Party were set ablaze, and government buildings were damaged in several towns. In Valjevo, even courthouses and prosecutors' offices were attacked. Videos of police beating protesters circulated widely on social media, fueling further outrage. Dozens were arrested and both demonstrators and police officers were injured. Opposition groups accused pro-government supporters of deliberately provoking violence, while the government insisted that extremists had hijacked the protests. The atmosphere in Belgrade was particularly tense as crowds chanted for Vučić's resignation and demanded the release of detainees. Addressing the nation in a televised speech, President Vučić denounced the protests as pure terrorism, and claimed, without evidence, that foreign powers were behind the unrest, aiming to destabilize Serbia and replace his government with an anarcho-leftist regime. He warned that unless the state responded with greater force, it was only a matter of days before protesters killed someone. "I am saying this for history," Vučić declared, portraying himself as the defender of law, order and national stability. Although he stopped short of declaring a state of emergency, he promised that the authorities would use everything at our disposal to restore peace. His rhetoric was uncompromising, emphasizing that Serbia would not allow chaos or violent uprisings to dictate its future. Despite these threats, demonstrators refused to back down. New rallies took place in Belgrade and other cities, with citizens chanting slogans such as, "Arrest Vučić," and carrying banners demanding justice. While some of these gatherings remained peaceful, the sense of confrontation has deepened. Many Serbians view the protests as a broader struggle against corruption, media control and the erosion of democratic norms. For years, critics have accused Vučić of concentrating power, weakening independent institutions and silencing dissent. The violent turn of the protests has only intensified fears that Serbia is sliding further into authoritarianism. The crisis is also playing out in parliament and institutions. Earlier in 2025, a dramatic brawl broke out in the National Assembly, where opposition lawmakers clashed with members of Vučić's party. Smoke bombs, flares and physical fights disrupted a session, highlighting how deep the political divide has become. Outside parliament, students have blocked universities and farmers have staged road blockades in solidarity with the movement. Strikes and walkouts in different sectors reflect a society increasingly polarized and restless. The international community is watching closely. Serbia is a candidate for membership in the European Union, and Brussels has repeatedly urged the government to respect democratic freedoms and allow peaceful protest. Human rights organizations have condemned police brutality and warned against indiscriminate repression. The Council of Europe has called for restraint, while opposition leaders abroad accuse Vučić of copying the authoritarian playbook of other illiberal leaders. At the same time, Serbia's closer ties with Russia and China complicate its relations with Western powers. Vučić's suggestion that the protests are foreign-backed echoes Cold War-era rhetoric and may push Serbia further from the European path. On the ground, ordinary Serbians are paying the price. Clashes have left many injured, while fear of arrest has spread among young activists. Families of detained protesters accuse authorities of abuse and intimidation. Daily life has been disrupted by strikes, blockades and police patrols. Yet the spirit of resistance remains strong, with many citizens insisting that the current wave of demonstrations is not just about one tragedy but about years of corruption, neglect and the shrinking of democratic space. For them, the Novi Sad disaster was the last straw, a symbol of what happens when public money is siphoned off and accountability disappears. Vučić's gamble is that a hardline response will restore control and deter further unrest. But his threats may instead deepen the crisis. By labeling demonstrators as terrorists and blaming outsiders, he risks alienating even moderate citizens who joined the protests